alarm clock sounds one morning. Joe gets up from bed, walks over to the kitchen, he gets ready for his day, gets his food together. And as he's doing this, he thinks to himself about what he's got to do for the week. In his mind, he thinks to himself, I'm frustrated, I'm tired. I've been interviewing for 3 months. You see, Joe has been with a firm as a senior user experience designer for 4 years. This company, which he loves, and the people he works with are awesome. But 3 months ago, this company lost their largest account, and they're going to be closing their doors. The good news about this, they gave him a little bit of runway, 3 months, to be able to look for his next position. But he's been interviewing for 3 months, probably over 20 interviews. He's tired, he's frustrated, and quite frankly, he's just burnt out. He loves being a senior user experience designer, and he's a senior technologist as well. He gets in his car, he heads out to the gym. And that rearing head came back in his mind of how frustrated and tired he was and how burnt out he was in looking for his next role. But Joe is a very optimistic person. Joe knows that this week is going to be the week that he's going to find his next career along this journey. So he goes and he begins his workout. He's elated about the week, and he gets his workout done. Goes back to his car, and he heads over to his favorite coffee shop and begins thinking about what he's going to do for the day. As he's going through and processing in his mind as far as what's going to be going on during the day, he reminds himself that he's got this great, awesome interview with an awesome company called Lyft, L-I-F-T. And this company sounds perfect for him. It's a marketing firm with 30 people. They're building out the user experience practice, and they're hiring a senior user experience designer. He's elated and he is excited. So he starts preparing for this interview, writes some things down, and is ready to rock. Meanwhile, across town, Chelsea is driving on the way to work. She is so excited and thrilled about her job and what she loves to do. She is digital head for Lyft. It's a fantastic firm with 30 employees. Got some great clients, Disney, Kia, you name it, they got it. But with her and the leadership team, they've discovered that basically there's some gaps with the solutions they're creating for their clients. Their clients love them, but these solutions aren't as engaging. They're not exciting, and they're kind of functional, but not really. Chelsea thinks to herself, you know, we really need to hire a great person to fill this gap and be able to help our clients. She remembers that about a month ago, she was at a conference in Vegas, and she saw a talk about user experience, which is something new to Chelsea. She's embarrassed about this because she is the digital head of marketing. Why did she not know about user experience? But she's going to work, and she's excited, and she can't wait to get there. She rolls up in the parking lot and walks inside. She runs into Dan. Dan is the CTO of Lyft. And it reminds Chelsea that she needs to find somebody, not only with user experience, but another gap they have within trying to identify this role is somebody that understands integration tools, that knows about APIs because they're building out for the enterprise. So she's reminded of that. They exchange pleasantries, and she heads into her office. Now Chelsea starts doing some research about user experience designer. She finds that UX professional, UX strategist. She's quite confused of what exactly she's going to call this role and what she needs to find, but she sees UX designer and she's like, hey, this is a visual designer. We need visuals. This sounds like a great idea. So she decides that she is going to look for a user experience designer, senior user experience designer. She begins to start writing up the job description. Goes through it, makes sure that she's got those integration tools, one of the other barriers. This person's got to be senior, this person's got to be leading clients. This person is going to be the brand that goes out to the clients. So it's really important to find the right fit. She finishes up the job description, she prints it out, she goes back to her desk. Looks something like this. And just as she's putting it down at her desk, Dan shows up at her door. She's like, Chelsea, are we having our leadership meeting this morning? She says, yes, we are. Oh my goodness, we're 5 minutes late. She grabs this job description, she heads into the leadership meeting. In the leadership meeting, she goes through this job description itself and what she thinks that this role is going to be. And she marks it $95,000 for the senior UX designer that's going to help with this gap. After debating back and forth, the leadership team approves the budget for $95K. She's elated. She goes back to her desk. And then all of a sudden, she gets a call from Brian. Brian is a senior recruiter. Brian has actually been working with Chelsea for the last 2 years and has proven well as far as being a recruiter. She says, hey Brian, this is really funny that you happen to call. I just got a budget approval for a UX designer. Can you help? Oh yeah, Chelsea, we can definitely do that. So she sends the job description over to him. He reads it, understands it, varies to $95K. And it gets to work. 2 weeks later, they identify 3 top candidates. There's Joe. Joe is a senior user experience designer who came from the development field and migrated over to user experience. He understands integration tools well. He understands APIs. In addition to this, Joe has honed his craft in user experience, and he's coming from an agency that is shutting their doors. He looks like the great fit for this. However, Joe is at $120,000 a year. Then there's Tim. Tim's a great guy. He's a user experience designer as well. Comes from another agency. Tim's great. The only thing that Tim lacks is really he doesn't understand API and integration tools, and he's kind of lacking as far as working with clients, and his salary request is $110,000. Then there's Morgan. Morgan graduated from college about 5 years ago in the design school. She moved right into user experience. And she's been doing that. She's led clients. Sometimes she definitely knows integration tools. And she's coming from an agency, so it's well aligned. So Chelsea, of the 3 of them, chooses to hire Morgan. I can relate a lot to Joe, and I don't know if a lot of you can relate to Joe as well in the story. I actually came from the business side before user experience. I know it well. And then I went and I honed my craft in user experience. And ironically enough, when this concept of this idea of User Experience Maverick came to mind, which by the way, I'm doing a soft launch today, you hear big design, so woo! I moved my family back to Denver 4 months ago. I myself was on my own journey to find my next path in my career and who to join. I went through over 40 interviews, and that may sound extensive, but I have 20 years of experience in technology. And I was looking for the right fit. And I understand the companies and the agencies were looking for the right fit as well. Well, I'm happy to report that last week I started my job last Tuesday. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm a senior user experience manager for Sagetti. I'm a User Experience Maverick, product designer, entrepreneur, and I'm a public speaker as well. So before I get into what the User Experience Maverick is, what I'd like to do is go through a couple of things as far as roles that we have existing in the marketplace today. And then I'm going to walk you through as far as some of the history. There's something that actually complements that as far as digital devices and where we've evolved in this digital age over the last 15 years. Has anybody ever heard of this role before? User Experience Designer? Do you have any designers in the room? Okay. Typically, as a user experience designer, what I've found through my extensive research and going through, I've identified it of one of three, fits in one of three categories. It's a visual designer, graphic designer, that they're looking for somebody to do the visuals, more the UI, but they throw user experience in it because they need to engage the users as well. The second thing that I find is that it's a leader, head or IA, somebody more the senior level to lead these clients, but the salaries are higher up there, so they call it a user experience designer. That is nothing against user experience designers, by the way. It's just more responsibility. Or the third that you see is these guys, right? The infamous unicorn. I want a three-pronged horn dancing on one leg unicorn. Now, I am not against unicorns. I'm sure there's a purpose for everyone. But that's a lot to ask for somebody to do. Has anybody seen a UX professional strategist before? Does that come to mind? Okay, great. This is the, what I call, I don't know what to call this role, so we're going to call it this, UX professional, UX strategist, UX, something. It's the, I need a leader, I don't know what UX is, but demand is asking for it, so that's what I'm going to call it. Okay? It's very common out there. I can probably share with you about 40 different examples of that one. Then there are others. Of course, it's self-explanatory. If you hear UX manager director, that makes sense. UX producer, that's kind of an interesting term because that is actually a legacy thing that came back from a while back. UX practice manager, honestly, from that role, I don't know what that person does. Or a UX developer, really they want somebody to code, and they said UX, and it's almost like that unicorn thing. Now transitioning over to the history and user experience history, what I want to do is I just want to walk you through the years of the evolution of more in the lines of HCI than user experience, because user experience evolved over this time. Thank you to Carnegie Mellon for this information. Just some high notes as far as this first set of a timeline. 1963, the first computer-aided drafting happened. The biggest one for me on this one is look at 1984, the year of the Mac. This is the first Windows. And it's first when WYSIWYG was introduced. And then welcome to the World Wide Web in 1990. Does anybody remember the 56K dial-up and you heard that nice little fun sound? Ooh, that's so exciting, whatever. I actually have a CD still today, believe it or not. My wife hates me for it because I'm one of those people that saves things. And she's a minimalist, but yeah. Now, does anybody remember the Telebomb years, 95 to 2002? We're going to go throw $500 million at something and hope that it sticks. But I firmly believe that even though the Telebomb years was kind of disastrous, it evolved some things, right? I mean, we had the first iPod that came out in 01. Social media came on the scene in 04 and 06. First iPhone, first Android, 07, 08, and then the first iPad, 2010. Now this is where it gets really exciting. Basically, as a useless fact, if ever you're playing trivia or whatever, the first person ever coined the term of UX was Don Norman from Apple. On his first day to work, he actually went out to Apple and started his job, and they said, "What do you want us to call you?" He said, "Call me a UX architect." Now, I've done a lot of research in this. Maybe somebody in the room has this. I could not find it. But I feel confident that around the time of 07, more in the lines around 2009, 2010, is when we were starting to see this user experience thing adopted and UX being adopted in the marketplace. So I find this interesting correlation with the rise of these digital devices and social media and internet actually connecting with user experience. It's getting more and more difficult, right? Well, check this out. 2010, the first iPad, first Galaxy, Samsung, Android. Look at 2012. 116 million tablets were shipped in 2012. 1.7 million mobile devices were shipped. This is thanks to Gartner. But I really want you to pay attention to 2014 and 2015. Look at 2014. That's like 4 or 5 years from when the time it came out. 2.4 billion digital devices were shipped. In 2015 was 2.6 billion. If you combine those two together, that's more than the world's population. It's crazy. How many people in the room have more than 4 digital devices, just out of curiosity?
In the home or just personal?
Personal. Okay, thanks. And of course, there's the unicorn. Yeehaw! That was around 2011, 2012 is when the unicorn came around. But as we all know, these tools have come about, like Bootstrap, that we can use now with reusable code. My point that I'm making with this timeline is UXers are needed more than ever in the marketplace as of 2015. We've got multiple tablet screen sizes. We've got mobile screen sizes, 7-inch, 10-inch. We got a lot of integration tools. There's a lot of things going on here where we're needed in the marketplace. We even have touch screen TVs. I'm just waiting for the other Jetson things to come around. The User Experience Maverick. So, officially I'm rolling this out as a soft launch today. It's more this guy, okay? Not this guy. Even though we think this guy's awesome. Paraphrasing the actual description of a Maverick. A Maverick is somebody who is a senior technologist. They came from a complementary role that we find all the time working on user experience projects. And they organically add value while they're coupling with the proven UX experience that they have. They become an asset to the project, to the client, agency, corporate, whatever they're working at, through the combined lens of the two. They increase client satisfaction and they make sure that the project is done on time. These are senior people that are assertive, independent enough to be able to come in, oftentimes with problematic situations going on, they can get it figured out. So we've all seen something like this before, right? The UCD process. Hopefully everybody knows what the UCD process is. Thanks to UX Mastery. Just to drive my point, going through the UCD process, you work with business stakeholders. You work with marketing, you work with product management, front-end development, developers, right? If you came from one of these and you move over to user experience and you migrate, now you've got two sides, and oftentimes I feel in the marketplace that they want to, it's just a misalignment, you know, they're calling UX designers, calling them professionals, when all the while they've got this awesome experience and background that they could actually use. Okay? Why is the Maverick needed? They're an asset to every project, increasing value organically. There's a role gap in the marketplace, I feel. It's interesting, out of all the 40 interviews I've been on for the last 3 or 4 months and the journey that I took, a lot of these mobile and web development companies and agencies that I know personally, there was this common thread just to prove the point that the Maverick was needed. There's more devices, integration tools, and other critical pieces than ever before. And what's also nice for a Maverick is it allows us to be able to work our skills that we have. Fast forwarding back to the situation with Chelsea. She's writing this job description, she's doing some research, and she identifies a User Experience Maverick is really what she needs. In her head, she originally thought like 95 grand, but these Mavericks are a little bit more expensive because they bring a lot of value to the table. And she's also thinking about Dan, their CTO, like, we need somebody that really understands these integration tools. So she writes up the job description. It gets approved for $120,000 after debating back and forth. They identify those 3 candidates that you saw earlier, and instead she hires Joe. And the interesting thing about the process with Joe is in the leadership meeting to get approval of who to hire, Joe met Dan and was able to see as far as his past experience and how he can add value to projects. The end result, yes, it was $35,000 higher than what Chelsea was originally thinking that this role was going to be. But check out what happened in the next 6 months. He worked on 4 projects, avoided 2 big disasters. He helped meet project deadlines by avoiding creep, scope creep. Clients are elated about working with Joe. Joe also identified, just organically being there, he connected with the development staff, and he identified another $110,000 of work for Lyft. So the question today is, are you a UX Maverick? You might have to get some boots. Sorry about that. But we're in Dallas, right? So it's okay. We all want to be heroes, don't we? We all want to be heroes. Who doesn't? Who wants to be a hero? Anybody want to be a hero? I want to be a hero. If I could actually grab a cape and I could run down the street and go to work every day, that'd be awesome. But it looked kind of silly, especially during the daytime. But Mavericks are not something that show up on a white horse. They're not this person that all of a sudden is going to go there and save the day. They're not a magician. Okay? Questions to ask yourself. Did you migrate into UX from another complementary field? Do you have proven chops in user experience? Keep that one in mind, because if you have this one area and you're lacking in user experience, then this is not going to work. Are you confident enough to lead, guide, and direct? This is a senior role that is leading projects. If you answer yes to all of these, please come join us. I actually took this concept and this idea and this definition to 20 other UXers, and I got a unanimous response that Mavericks are needed in the marketplace. Now, if you don't find yourself as a Maverick, that's completely okay, because everybody has a role, and everybody has there's always a need as far as what you have. But if you want to become a Maverick, find a complementary field that you are passionate about, that you're passionate about. Don't go and find a complementary field because you want to be a Maverick. Go find one that you're passionate about that you can hone your craft in. Do you have, and go through as far as honing your craft and user experience. Find a mentor that will work along with your journey. If you are one of these that are looking to become a Maverick, please contact me. I'd be honored to be your mentor. A couple of things of caution and side notes about being a Maverick. Leaders often lead alone. They do collaborate with their team, okay? They do work with a lot of people, but they're often solving problems all the time. They collect their 15, 20 pages or whatever notes, and then they go back alone and they go to figure it out. So you got to be assertive enough to take this on your own and drive it. You must bring with you humble intelligence. This is a term that I actually coined called humble intelligence. Don't ride up in your white horse. Nobody wants to see that. Humble intelligence, by definition for me, is somebody who comes in and proves themselves, but they don't brag about it, and they don't carry an ego on their shoulders. These are people that just go in and get the work done that needs to be done. And oftentimes they're adding a lot more value than originally expected. You must be constantly learning. Do not forget about the 5 billion digital devices combined in 2014, 2015. Guys, girls, this is something that actually the digital devices, and we are in the digital device age. This is not going to go away. And it can be challenging, but very rewarding. So, just to sum this up, it's a self-proclaimed role. This is not, I'm going to go out and get my Cisco certification, okay? This is something that's self-proclaimed. If you feel like you can take on the weight of a Maverick, you're going to also have a ton of responsibilities that go along with that. So keep that in mind. So the rollout. I'm doing the hard launch next month with the User Experience Maverick. What it's going to include is a website. You're also going to have branding on that as well. There's going to be a main branding logo of the User Experience Maverick, and I'm also creating subs with that to right align the other places. So product management, marketing, development, other areas that come along with it. So that when somebody like Chelsea is looking for that person, she can then say, I need a Maverick because I also need somebody that has had that past experience with development skills and understanding APIs. And that's how that alignment works. So now it's your turn. Is there anybody in the room that would qualify themselves as a Maverick or call themselves a Maverick? That's awesome. Thank you. So if you are, then I want you seriously to get your mobile phone out of your bag, wherever it is, and I want you to go to this URL. What I'm looking for in the next 30 days is to find over 100 Mavericks that can help me and collaborate with me to join me on this mission to get this thing adopted by next year. The goal, the end goal is actually by the fall of next year, I want to start seeing User Experience Mavericks on resumes. I want to start looking at clients and companies that's starting to recognize this Maverick and seeing the value. And in addition to that, I want to see, we're going to work on case studies as well and see how this worked along the path. And that's it. What questions can I answer for y'all?
Michael, it took me a long time to figure out what I was. And then I was invited to work on a project for Nissan back in 2008, 2009. And I kind of had one of those aha moments because I was working as a business analyst, as a UX architect, as an engagement manager, across the entire enterprise of that. And it was really kind of very seminal for me to do that. But knowing how to communicate that value proposition, it's taken me a long time to do that. Right? Have you been able to codify that value proposition for yourself?
Yes, but I reserve socializing UX Maverick today.
Say that again, sir.
I basically held off on socializing the User Experience Maverick role until today. So by definition, when I would go into interviews and talk to people, I would talk to them about how I migrated from the business world. And first thing, and one of the cool things, I was talking to somebody about this, that you want to go and ask the questions first as far as what their needs are, and then you want to make sure to right align those so that you get the position, make sure it's the right fit, right? So if a client actually says, I'm really looking for somebody that we need some help with clients and problematic clients. Well, I came from the business field, so I can actually talk about that. So it's more of a touch point than speaking points that I saw in the interviews. Does that help? Okay. Any other questions? I'd love to hear feedback, about this.
Yeah, so we've gone to a couple of presentations this week to talk about unicorns and stuff along those lines. we come from a company where we're doing a lot of these things, making larger strategic UX decisions, as well as like writing all the front end code and back end code for our products. So we encompass a large amount of what gets built. Do you feel like there's a lot of that? I mean, these are questions that we've been talking about. Like, we don't really know. We're trying to get engaged that by being here. But is that something that like is happening in a lot of other companies, or do you think that'd be kind of atypical for us to be doing that?
You know, I found, in my experience, there's two sets of kind of companies. You got ones that, you know, want you to do all the UX strategy, but they want you to code as well. And actually Google's like that, believe it or not. Then there's others that separate those two. What I've seen in my experience myself, as well as working with clients, the better model that I've seen is that approach where you have guys on one side and the developers over here, because it's a right and right left right.
So you don't think it's possible for people to be effective doing?
They can be effective. They're just going to be weaker in one or the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that like a pretty widely held view in the industry, you think?
Yeah, I think so. That's funny, that's one of the questions I asked my little test group of 20 about this, because I'm like, and I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them agree with me.
Right.
That it really is two
It's
different
different paradigms.
Yeah.
It's it's both gifting and temperament paradigm type of issue. So.
Well, and the other thing about it too is that you know, by having them separate, you've got more of a collaboration. This one over here is looking at, you know, dependencies and, you know, coding and how that goes, but this one's looking more at strategy and making sure they work together.
Right. I tend to disagree a little bit just because we've been really effective in our method, and you can still get that collaboration between a bunch of unicorns instead of between a bunch of people who don't necessarily understand each other. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of leakage in that communication whenever you don't have as much of an understanding across all different disciplines. But I was just asking because I want to know what the broader view is.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question.
I actually have two questions.
Yes.
Okay, the first one is, would you consider a T-shaped person to be kind of a maverick, like, you know, keeping is deep in one area but is aware and like keeping yourself over, you know, at least the process?
It's possible, definitely possible, that line. I'm familiar with the T-shaped model. It's funny, with the 20 people I was talking about, we were identifying more of us as a cone. It's kind of a funny thing, but there's actually a couple of problems with that, right, that come along with it. Because there's people that have the UX strategist leading the front end side, they're doing all that work as far as the projects, but they also migrate themselves from their previous experience to be able to help the healthiness of the project. So they actually have a couple of deep skills. So they're going to be deep in one area in UX, and then also they're in there.
Right. My other question is on like the complementary like areas. Like, see, I come from a background like more of a cognitive neuroscience psychology background, but with applications in like decision making reasoning that I'm translating over to UX.
Right.
Like specifically UX research. Would that be considered?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yep. What other questions?
So I actually have a question for you regarding the gentleman that was talking with the weight and the burning shirt earlier. So I run a UX practice within a company that does everything from strategy through to development. Now some of the strategy stuff that we're doing, we go when we talk to users, right? But it's not a narrowly scoped thing. It could be a software as a service company that recently did a customer service model change in their business. And we need to go in and find out what's wrong, and it's not just the digital product we're looking at. So I guess my question would be to you, if you think the separation that you talked about, which I find necessary, because a person that's really, really great at coding, like back-end stuff, is not the same person that has the deep business knowledge that can go in as a UX specialist and have that conversation with the CEO of a company.
Yep.
So perhaps this like unicorn versus non-unicorn is scoped according to the size of the project that people are working on and whether it's within a company or not.
I agree with that. Did you have a question though? Or is it-
Sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. Thank you very much.
What about we whole brain thinkers? I'm a guy who, when I went to university, I actually wrote out what I wanted to study, and I shopped it at the universities until I got accepted at the one which I did.
Yep.
So I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Music. So
Nice.
I also did a science component, which is audio engineering. And then I'm 3 shorts of a minor in marketing. So I'm able to talk to developers, designers, and CEOs.
Which is awesome. You could add a huge value in your Maverick because you basically have those in that background. I mean, think about it this way. What if, and I know that, you know, the earlier, in the earlier talk, Emily mentioned as far as works for an auction company, right? So if you go along and right along the sidelines of those, as far as combining those with the experience of what you have, what if there's companies that are in the music business? You know, that name.
And healthcare.
And healthcare,
Healthcare.
absolutely, yep. Any other questions? Thank you all for coming today.